You wake up and step out of bed onto a freezing floor. You immediately walk to the hallway and crank up the thermostat. But as the vents start blasting, you are relying on convective heating, a system that warms the air itself and blows it around your house. This means your furnace spends energy and money to heat thousands of cubic feet of empty, rising air near your ceiling, while your feet remain cold. Now compare that to a 14th century peasant. By sleeping on a pile of straw next to a cow inside a drafty head, that peasant stayed warmer through the night than you do with a modern HVAC system. This chart measures thermal efficiency as the percentage of generated heat that actually reached the human body. In a modern forced air system, 20% of that energy is lost as it leaks through walls or pools at the ceiling. A medieval hearth, however, delivered up to 90% of its radiant energy directly to the people sitting around it. Their survival relied on a highly specific scientific approach. They engineered their environment to heat human bodies directly, rather than trying to heat the buildings themselves. Our reliance on push-button thermostats has made us forget the physics of thermal survival. We abandoned precision engineering for automated convenience, and it leaves us colder and poorer every winter. From roughly 1300 to 1870, Europe endured a period of severe climate cooling, known as the Little Ice Age. Winters stretched on for months, and temperatures regularly plunged well below freezing. The cold was an immediate threat. Heavy snowfall collapsed roofs, deep drifts trapped isolated communities for weeks, and hypothermia shadowed every family as the sun went down. Peasant homes offered almost no resistance to these elements. They were built using wattle and daub, weaving wooden sticks together and smearing them with a mixture of mud, straw, and animal dung. It dried into a hard shell, but it remained porous and did nothing to block an icy winter wind. These homes had no glass in the windows and no insulation in the walls. Because the building leaked heat so rapidly, throwing more wood on a fire to try and warm the room was impossible. In this battle, the cold always won. Since their architecture failed to shield them from the freeze, peasants focused on engineering microsystems to hoard every available calorie of heat. This schematic shows why the modern wall-mounted fireplace is a thermodynamic failure. The design is optimized for venting smoke, which means the vast majority of your heat gets sucked up the chimney. The radiant heat that does make it into the room only warms a narrow triangle directly in front of the flames. The medieval solution was entirely different. Builders placed a massive fire pit in the exact dead center of the home, sometimes inside halls up to 46 feet long. This setup capitalized on the inverse square law of radiant heat, a physical principle where thermal energy drops off the further you move from the source. By putting the fire in the middle of the room, you have the maximum distance to the corners. Every human sitting in a circle around that fire absorbs direct thermal radiation. The hearth itself doubled as a thermal battery. It was built on a base of thick limestone or packed earth to provide thermal mass. Thermal mass is a dense material's ability to absorb intense energy during a fire and then slowly release it back into the space long after the flames burn out. The central hearth functioned as a calibrated thermal hub, extracting life-saving energy from a minimal supply of wood. At dusk, the survival strategy shifted. To conserve precious fuel, the family banked the main fire to a low smolder. They abandoned heating the room and focused entirely on heating the bed. They deployed ancient heating pads. Someone would pull flat stones out of the hot coals, wrap them in thick rags, and bury them at the foot of their straw mattresses. The stones radiated steady heat upward through the bedding for hours. Then they formed what historians call a human lasagna, multiple generations of the family packed tightly together into a single sleeping area, and they often brought their most valuable livestock inside to sleep directly against the walls. A single sheep produces about 150 watts of continuous thermal energy. Penned tightly in a small room, a few animals act like heavy-duty space heaters. The air temperature inside the hut easily dropped below freezing by midnight. But by combining the slow release of hot stones, shared body heat, and livestock wattage, peasants engineered insulated microclimates that kept their core temperatures safe. Food functioned as a thermodynamic tool. Right before crawling into the straw, peasants ate dense, high-fat meals, like thick pottage and heavy meat stews. Fat burned slowly. The prolonged digestion of these heavy meals forced the body to work throughout the night, acting as an internal furnace, generating core heat from the inside out. They paired this internal engine with external armor. Peasants layered rough-spun wool and rarely washed their outerwear in the winter. The natural buildup of lanolin oils and daily dirt clogged the microscopic gaps in the fabric, creating a rugged shell that trapped body heat and blocked out the icy wind. Even breathing required a specific strategy. Taking deep gulps of freezing air could chill the lungs and lead to a lethal case of pneumonia. So they practiced survival breathing, taking shallow, nose-only breaths while sleeping to warm the air before they reached their chest. High-fat digestion, wind-proofed wool, and shallow breathing worked in unison to sustain a stable core temperature. Even in a room that reached the freezing point, the human body functioned as its own regulated heat source. When dawn broke over a frozen Little Ice Age landscape, the family woke up alive. They survived the night because they had mastered the application of thermal physics in a hostile environment. Today, we blindly trust automated convective heating systems. We pay a fortune to blow hot air against cold windows and ceilings, while we sit shivering on the couch, wondering why the house still feels drafty. You can apply this physics right now. Instead of cranking the thermostat to heat the entire house, use a radiant space heater pointed directly at your chair. Place a hot water bottle at the foot of your bed before you sleep. Focus on warming thermal mass and your own body rather than the air. The timeless lesson of the medieval hearth is simple. Your energy and your money should be spent heating the human body, not thousands of cubic feet of empty, rising air. Pop culture often portrays medieval peasants as the helpless victims of a primitive age. In reality, they were engineers of necessity. We spend thousands of dollars every winter trying to defeat the cold with sheer power, while they outsurvived the Little Ice Age with physics.